War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, the place where we talk about anything and everything Auburn, orange and blue related. If it's Auburn, we talk about it here. It can be sports related, it can be non-sports related. Whatever you want to talk about, what's on your mind on this live show, we do so here for you. So thank you for joining us if you're watching this live or on the replay. We always appreciate you spending a few minutes with us to kind of hang out and talk about what's going on in the world. The Auburn Family Spectrum. So on today's episode, or today's stream, whatever you want to call it, the topic that I have at hand is discussing Auburn basketball and what I'm calling the final stretch for it. So that's the main thing I have prepared today, but I'd love to hear from you, other things that you have on your mind in the world of Auburn Tigers news and things like that. So feel free to comment and offer questions up as we go throughout the stream today. So with that being said, it is a live stream here, and I always love to, as I said, drop questions and comments. But let me know that you're here with a War Eagle, a hello. How are you? We sometimes get some rogue fans that pop in here from time to time from other fan bases that I don't know why they would come over here, but they tend to do that. So if you're here, just let me know by saying hello, War Eagle, whatever. And if you're watching this replay, you can do the same thing. Even though we won't be able to interact with you live, we always can come back and address your comments and questions that you might have later on down the road in any format that you would like to do so. So that being said, like I said, I wanted to talk about Auburn basketball today and kind of where we were at on that spectrum and kind of what everybody's feelings were. I know yesterday was a bit disappointing on that aspect there. So we can talk about that if you'd like to. I know there's some depressing things. Let me share a couple of things with you before we get started. And Twitter, we are broadcasting on two different formats. We have Twitter here in front of me, YouTube in front of me, and Twitter off to my side. We always suggest that you come on over to the YouTube side of things because it's a little bit more coherent. I'll call it a little bit more. The stuff shows up a little bit better on there, but they can see the cue card there. And I know I kind of seem a little bit distracted here on the stream. I'm making sure something's actually running properly. You run a tight ship here sometimes, and then everything can still go wrong. So I'm making sure the YouTube folks are actually getting the stream that they're supposed to be getting right now, like as I'm talking with you. So that's why I probably seem just a little bit distracted. I think, yeah, we're good on that end. So anyway, seems like we're up and running on all ends, and I'm starting to get thumbs up and everything like that. So like I said, here's some ways that are listed on YouTube that you can help support the content that we're doing here. A big thing is the Booster Club. If you want to join at patreon.com/E2C Network for as low as $1 a month, you can get yourself some awesome perks there for as low as that amount there. And I say this every time. I think people kind of laugh at the fact that you're only asking for $1 a month. I mean, really, that's all it takes because, we have costs that we have to cover here to do all this kind of stuff for you. And that's really all it takes. And we're glad to have any amount there. And we've had several people become a part of that recently, which has been a big, big help. So thank y'all so much for that. It really means the world when you are willing to put in, obviously, your finances, but also your time here to be part of the stream. If you haven't already, we would love for you to go and check out our podcast network. We do this live streams, this YouTube channel as well, but we have our podcast network. The link is now in the chat window along with the link for the Patreon campaign, the E2C Network Booster Club, if you want to check those things out. Go and do all that kind of stuff. So that's all the big stuff. Actually, let me. I have one other housekeeping thing, and I know a lot of it's always funny the people that get frustrated and they don't understand we have to do these things. But so if you'll notice on YouTube, especially the Twitter folks, the picture's pretty good because it's my phone. The webcam here gets a little fuzzy at times here. We're working our way towards maybe making a purchase to make that a little bit better. And that's why we bring up some of these things that we do, the ways that you can help support that. But another way that you can help get the picture a little bit better on here is by helping us get to 1,000 subscribers, because at that point we become eligible to broadcast live from my phone, which is, as the Twitter folks can see right now, a lot better. So if you would like to do that, have that happen, make sure you're smashing that like button, subscribing, all that good stuff. All right, enough of that. Let's say hello to everybody that's here. So far, I see Kenneth, Neil. Glad you didn't get blown out, and happy to see Bama lose. I mean, that's always a good day, right? Thomas is here as well. Let me move the window stuff down here as we go on. Joe Rudolph, what's going on, Joe? Thanks for being here, Joe. We always appreciate seeing so many familiar faces here on the stream. So drop your comments and questions. Here's the thing I ask. How's everybody feel about Auburn basketball after yesterday? Because I felt like there was a almost unsaid expectation that Auburn was going to win. Seriously, I really do feel like that Auburn fans had kind of convinced themselves, me included, that Auburn was going to win yesterday. And there's kind of like a down today. Am I the only one that feels that way? I really feel like that's happened here. War Productions, what's going on? He says, it's okay, I'm here. I really do feel like that's kind of happened here, that we had this expectation and we were kind of finding all these things to get excited about in a season where we're not going to be able to compete on a national stage at the postseason. So I do think that there's kind of a little bit of a down right now of what we have. If we had Powell, it would have been closer. I think Powell in his prime would have obviously made Auburn a little bit more deadly, a little bit more deep, and a little bit more versatile. I don't know that he would have made the absolute difference, though, even with everything that we already have to compete with against Baylor. Baylor's just a good team. Can we all just agree right now? And this is me right here in front of the camera. I don't think my two brothers, and I said this on the live stream, I have two brothers that live in Waco, Texas right now. One has finished up their graduate program and is living and working there right now, and the other one is in graduate school right now. And so they say they're Auburn fans, but they're not. But this is me saying in the camera, you beat us. You beat us good. Not good, but you beat us enough and showed that you were the number 2 team. So I hope everybody can acknowledge that we got beat by a really, really deep and a really, really good basketball team. And we posed the question. We dropped the Inside the Jungle podcast episode this morning, so go listen to that if you haven't. Me and Gray break down that game and preview the next one. But we talked a lot about number 1 versus number 2. Auburn has played number 1 Gonzaga, who is yet to lose, and number 2 Baylor, who is yet to lose. In y'all's opinion, let's a quick poll of the room. Who's better, Gonzaga or Baylor at this point? What do you think? We've seen both of them. 2 different Auburn teams have seen each one of those. So, there was one without Sharif Cooper. Now there's one without Justin Powell. 2 different, makeups of the team have played number 1 and number 2. Who do you think is better? I'm leaning a certain way. I want to hear what you guys think. I feel the same way. I'm sort of numb from my Packers losing. Hold on, let's see. To Brady, so it's not nearly as bad as that. Yeah, I don't know that I can help you with that sorrow all that much. I don't invest as much energy and time into the NFL anymore, so I understand the pain, but I still don't get it. I have a cousin who is married to someone within the program. I can't say who it is, but he said that Justin Powell actually fractured his skull. I trust him. You don't have to, but you don't have to. So, here's what I'll say, stereotypical Auburn fan. I always subscribe, and I think you know this if you've been here long enough, to where there's smoke, there's fire. But to what degree? So I would say there is clearly something bigger going on with his head than just a concussion. So I would actually put a little bit of favor in that category. And I think, probably if that's the case, I don't know that you see Justin Powell the rest of the year, which is such a shame because he is a rising star. It was poised to just, kind of compete with Sharif Cooper for the spotlight. And here we are. Just the way that Auburn basketball has had luck this year. But anyway, there you go. So thanks for sharing that. So I don't dismiss that out of hand. I always do want to take things like that with a grain of salt, though. There should be a great high after yesterday. This team is with more seasoning will be a powerhouse. I agree. And so, James, I think it's an equal dose. I think you can be disappointed, but I think at the same time you need to temper that disappointment with what you saw that was very exciting. We can get revenge on Baylor in late February. How so? How do we get revenge on Baylor in late February? You're gonna War Productions. You're gonna have to figure that one out for me because we won't. I don't know how we would play them again. It's another step in a learning process. Our future is bright. We need to learn to shoot 2-point shots to go along with our 3-point plan. And we've done that at times this year, just not consistently. So I think everybody's offering up their opinions on who is right now who is the better team, the better one or two. The Zags, Baylor, Gonzaga, Gonzaga, Zags. Gonzaga is the best team in the land. So look, I'm leaning Baylor's the best team. Gonzaga thrives off their shooting. Baylor has so many other ways they can hurt you, and they're so deep. I don't know that I wouldn't put, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I'd put money on Baylor. I was that impressed with them. Auburn, while they're not the world beaters that we're used to this year, they're not a team that you can take lightly. And Baylor really, really showed a lot of impressive stuff against Auburn that I thought. So I think Baylor is the best team, even after seeing Gonzaga. Gonzaga put us away early in the season. But, I think Baylor is probably the best team. So if you have different opinions, please do share them. Neil says a fractured skull is not a good thing. My goodness. I mean, honestly, I'm not shocked, though. That's the thing is I have said this repeatedly on the podcast if you're listening to it. It went from, okay, well, he's got a concussion. He'll be, out of 1 or 2 games. And then that third game rolling, I was like, okay, well, maybe a third game. Fourth game, I'm starting to worry what else is going. And now we're into 7, I think 8 or something like that, games that he's missed. I'm really worried about the dude. And a fractured skull makes a ton of sense as to why, that's going on. So, like I said, I wouldn't, since it's just, kind of, we're using that from somebody's source. I would always want to take that with a grain of salt, but it makes sense. There's one thing you can say about Gonzaga. No hate. They are a great basketball team, but that is the thing. They are too good for the West Coast Conference. And so that's going to be their biggest problem is they're not competing. And that's why I put more in the camp of Baylor because they're competing against better competition in the conference. They just are. They got Texas in there. They've got Oklahoma State. They got Oklahoma. Iowa State, usually is good. They're not good this year. Kansas is there. Kansas State is every once in a while good. So they've got more talent there. Gonzaga. Who's Gonzaga got over there? Pepperdine? Anybody? Help me out with that one. Don't we? Oh, okay. I got you. I was trying to think War Productions here. I was on basketball, but you're right. So yes, in baseball we will be playing in the Round Rock Classic. Can let me take a quick personal side here and just say this. I had an opportunity not only go to 1 but to 2 Auburn versus Baylor events over near Waco. So my brother is getting married in a couple of weeks, and as I said, they're in Waco, Texas. But the wedding's in Dallas, or outside of Dallas. I was hoping they would pick a week before, so I could have gone to Auburn versus Baylor there. And I know some people were there. Some of y'all sent us pictures and stuff like that. It was awesome. But also, I was hoping to go to the Round Rock Classic, which is going to be, like you said, I think literally it's the week before the wedding. I would have loved to have gone to Round Rock and at least watched one game, if not all of the games, even the ones without Auburn. It would have been absolutely amazing. So, but you're right, Baylor. We could get revenge by proxy, but not officially in basketball. Yesterday we went about how I expected. This is E saying this. However, the Auburn had opportunities. The flat opening in the second quarter hurt. It really did. I mean, it was like Baylor saw the opening and took it. And to their credit, right? That's what a well-coached, a well-prepared, a very good basketball team does is even when you're in a situation where you're in a fight, when that window opens, you go through it. And you do not hesitate. And they did not. And it was just it got to a point so quickly where Auburn could not muster any comebacks they started mounting. It was like they kind of come back on that cushion that Baylor had built for itself, but they would bounce back each time. It was just hard to do that. I truly believe this in basketball. It's not always the case. There's no absolutes. But there's a certain in a game, there's a certain point where a team reaches the ability to withstand any comeback. And really, I think Auburn got to that really too quickly. So great perspective, E. I'm going Zags because Baylor coach is for trying to run up the score with first string, even though the game was in hand. I don't know that he was necessarily trying to run up the score. I get the sentiment, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he realized that Auburn has been in far worse situations and done far more. That was called. I took that as respect, not as running the score up. And and plus they're in a situation where they're trying to build their resume, pad their resume, and make sure that they are securing themselves as one of the top 4 seeds for the tournament. So I don't really I understand it, but I don't get so upset about that. Gonzaga best conference opponents is St. Mary's and BYU. So there you go. St. Mary's is usually pretty good. BYU every so often. Jimmer Fredette. I remember that name. That was the last time I remember anything about BYU. I think he's in the NBA now, but Jimmer Fredette was the last name I remember from there. But yeah, I do think that Gonzaga needs to go over and just like the Big Ten does, they allow some teams in there for just basketball. I think they need to go join the Pac-12 or whatever they are, 10, 9, 11, 12, whatever. Any chance Cooper returns next season? I'm late to this game this morning. Sorry. No, it's cool. We can retread some things. We haven't really talked about that today. I don't know Sharife Cooper, and without being able to ask him or anybody inside the program, the more he does in his first season at Auburn, I would say the less likely that happens, because the better he does, the more he solidifies himself in the first round and higher in that round. So if you want Sharife Cooper to to stay another year, you might want to hope that he kind of cools off a little bit. I think he's I'll say this. I believe this 100%. It's easier to convince Sharife Cooper to stay than Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro was ready outside of his shot, but that's something that will come with time. But he had an NBA body, NBA defense in mind, and he just was ready. Sharife Cooper, I think, is ready in some aspects, but I don't know that he's fully ready. So yeah. Bruce even thrown shade at him for it. Bruce usually level-headed. So I didn't hear that. So if Bruce obviously said something or mentioned something like that, then he probably, maybe there's a little bit of that going on. I personally didn't have a problem with it. But I'm not a coach. I'm not a player. So I don't really know the ins and outs of the games there and what actually was going on, bad blood and things like that. War Productions says, I don't think Cooper is NBA ready. He still has some things to work on as great as he is. In his opinion, it would be a mistake not staying for one more year. Well, we said the same thing about Isaac Okoro. And look what happened for him. I am... When you get players of this caliber in your program, I just don't fault them for leaving early. It sucks. It's a disappointment, but I can't fault them for making that type of decision. So that's kind of what I see about that. All right, so I opened up this discussion by this stream by saying, kind of what's our perspective of this? What does Auburn have left in 2021? Obviously, we're not competing in the SEC tournament, and obviously, we're not competing in the NCAA tournament, barring some miraculous thing that happens. And even if that was the case, I would say that Auburn, it's not the worst thing this year with the way they've kind of struggled at times trying to get the talent to match up with the age and all that kind of stuff. So what does everybody, what are you most excited about for the rest of the season? Because I think people are, after the loss yesterday, are kind of down about that, and you may not verbalize that, but I do think most of the Auburn family is going to be down, not necessarily not excited to watch Auburn basketball the rest of the season, but there's only 9 games left. Can I remind you of that? So if you're down about that, you better enjoy it while you have it. Only 9 games left. No chance for anything else. 9 SEC games. So we're at the midpoint of SEC, and it's always nice to I guess I would prefer the Big 12 SEC Challenge and non-conference play and back in December. But, there are some pluses to doing the Big 12 SEC Challenge right here in the middle of conference play. Kind of a nice break. It reminds you that you need to be ready for non-conference opponents if you're going to be playing in any postseason stuff. So I think, it has its good and its bad stuff here. But 9 games left. The next 5 games, 5, I think are all highly winnable for Auburn, meaning I think they should be favored in most of those and will win them. Of course, that's the Auburn way, is they will lose to somebody they're not supposed to. So I'm expecting that already. So yeah, that's what I think. I think I don't have the schedule pulled up in front of me, but I remember we've got one versus Kentucky, who is, excuse me if this is a word that offends you, but Kentucky this year. even with all their talent. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Georgia is the next game. So I think all of those games we should be favored. What do you think? Let's talk about those 5 games first. Georgia, I think if I've got it right in my head, it's Georgia, Vanderbilt, then Ole Miss, then Kentucky, and then Mississippi State. Do you think Auburn wins out? What say you? And let me catch up on some comments and stuff, and we can obviously bounce around. Would love to see Cooper and Jabari Smith play. That's obviously a great seller, Brad, for the potential of him coming back. But first round, top 10, top 5. I don't know if he's going to do a top 5. It could be. Top 5 pick is hard. I'm sure he loves being here, and I'm sure he would love the prospect of Jabari Smith, but I'm sure they might get an opportunity to do it on the next level. Don't know that that's going to be his best selling point. I think the best selling point for him is to show him that he needs another year of growth and development to really, truly be ready to last in the NBA. And I don't know if Bruce is ready to make that case personally. Did you hear about the defensive end we got from Northwestern? Yeah, we posted that on social media as well. Always great to get some depth in. I don't really see – it's ironic that we just played them, and then one of their guys defected to come over here. I think it says a lot. But, yeah, it's always great to fill in some depth, obviously, with losing 2 defensive linemen to transfers already this year. 3? 2. I know 2. We're going to need some quick. I'm a big guy on saying that I see transfers as Band-Aids, not solutions, and I don't mean that to disparage a transfer coming over here. We had some of the greatest transfers ever. But I view them as sometimes necessary Band-Aids, but I would rather us build within ourselves and have a little patience. So it's something that I'm happy to see, because I think that is an area that we would need a quick Band-Aid for a little bit of time. To ruin Bama and the rest of the SEC championships in the tournament. Spoiler. Yes, so that's a great point, Kenneth. A great thing to look forward here is to play spoiler. I know that seems maybe a little bit hollow in some ways, but I enjoy that. Who doesn't enjoy ruining people's seasons? Like, come on, it's the Auburn way sometimes. I'm looking forward to watching Bama fans cry. I do. I get the feeling, and I know I've got my orange and blue glasses on, that Bama is going to be in for a rude awakening when they get to the tournament, and they will make the tournament at this point. I don't foresee them having a catastrophic fall off the rest of the season, but I don't think they're quite back yet. And I think that some of them think that they are. Could be wrong. I hope I am, but we'll see. My only hope is that we at least get to see Powell and Reef on the floor at the same time. We will see, though. Well, if this rumor is true about the whole cracked skull thing, I would not see him. I would not expect to see him the next year. Basketball is a dangerous game, folks. I think people forget about that. I think people, assume football, because you got to wear all those pads, is dangerous. It is. Some of the most dangerous games are the ones you'd never expect. Basketball is one of them. I've seen some of the most horrific injuries in basketball. It is. And that's so funny in our culture too, because we've got people that will demonize football because of the injuries, the high profile injuries you'll see out of that, but they forget about some of the ones in basketball. And I'm not just talking about leg and arm injuries. I'm talking about head injuries and full body injuries and stuff like that. It's a tough game. My expectation is to watch them grow as a team and maybe beat Bama the last game. Bama is talking trash after they won at Auburn. Oh yeah, of course. But they've been kind of beat up on by us, the last few years. So I guess it was kind of, you got to be willing. If we're going to dish it out, we got to be willing to take it. I would rather have the Big 10 SEC challenge, Pac-10, Big 12 challenge. War, let me counter you there. I actually love the Big 12 SEC challenge as a concept. The Big 10 and the ACC to me fit each other more, and I think the Big 12 and the SEC fit each other more regionally, culturally, just so many levels. I think they kind of match each other. More of the traditional powers are in the ACC and the Big 10, so it makes sense for them to play each other. More of the usual powers in the SEC and Big 12 are in there, and then I see both of those leagues as kind of rising, and I think it fits really, really, really well together. So I really like it. But it would be nice, though, to maybe rotate it and see an ACC SEC challenge, Big Ten. What if you rotate? Pac-12's over there by themselves competing with nobody. So we could rotate them in. Just keep this cycle going. Find one more mid-major program to cycle in there and just rotate everybody, or just do everybody. The Big West and SEC challenge. Of course, that would probably favor the SEC outside of Gonzaga, but I think it'd be fun. Auburn should win if the turnovers go down. The turnovers were a lot worse at the beginning of the season with Sharif here. That has kind of fixed itself a little bit. But yes, to me, it's not even turnovers at this point. If you look at yesterday's game was won by the bench. It was by Baylor's bench players. They are so deep. They said the same with them is that they have 8 starters, and it appears so. They are very deep. We are deep as well, talent-wise. But that talent is not producing on the level that a Baylor was. So that's what. So look at Baylor and see what Auburn could be if we can get the bench to produce points, not just blocks, not just steals, not just assists, but points. All those things are important. But if we can get more points out of them outside of Devin Cambridge, Auburn becomes a Baylor very, very soon. That's why I'm very high on the Baylor bandwagon at this point, if you could not tell. By the way, a couple of y'all have been hitting that like button. If you are enjoying the stream today, please do make sure you do that because it does help the stream out. Trying to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark, and we can't do it without you guys. And y'all have gotten us up to 800 very quickly, but we've kind of leveled off right now. I'd love to keep that train moving. Auburn fans, who is our biggest basketball rival? Great question. For me, and everybody else can answer this if you'd like to. I would say, obviously, Alabama's in there. I mean, that's just our biggest rival in general. I really love the Tennessee and Auburn rivalry that's developed, and I think Kentucky as well. I do think those two things. But then you can also kind of throw in a dark horse there would be like an Ole Miss or an Arkansas because we struggle with them so much. So I don't really necessarily say rivalry, but, those teams that you have problems with and it's good when you beat them. But definitely, if you push me to it, who's the best rivalry that we look forward to and get hyped up for the most? It's Auburn versus Tennessee right now. I think that's Auburn and Tennessee are the new guard of the SEC. Kentucky and Arkansas and Florida are the old guard of the SEC. And they're still around, obviously, but that's what I would say. That Dean could start experience with 4 sacks the last year, and I believe that stereotypical Auburn fan that he has 3 years of eligibility. So let me take back my statement earlier, not take it back, but clarify it. The reason I see transfers as Band-Aids because they're here for 2 years max. Usually, this guy's got potentially 3 years. I don't think if he's as good as he is, he'll leave before then. But the potential to stay and be more than a Band-Aid, be a solution for a longer period of time, to me, is what is appealing about him. They won't win out. They go brain dead defensively, especially Sharif. Well, Sharif's, you got to give him a little break. I mean, the dude's only doing everything else that we ask him to do in a very short amount of time. Kentucky is the biggest rivalry. It's one of those. I think Tennessee is, though, bet. Whoa, sharing some personal information here, but sounds like you got some tough stuff going on there. I mean, Kentucky isn't really a rival, just recently good games. But I would consider them a rival. I think it's developed into a rivalry, personally. If I fractured my skull playing a sport, I would probably never play again. I don't know, stereotypical Auburn fan. The competitor in me, that would be like the challenge to get back to that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Think about what's the kid's name who literally split open his leg on the floor for what team was it? Marquette or something like that a couple years ago, and he's back playing. He made it back playing, so yeah. I mean, I get the traumatic nature of it. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever, but I would never want to stop playing at that point. ACC SEC challenge. ACC would smoke the SEC. I think most years it would. I think Auburn won the SEC Big 12 challenge this year. So if you want to win the challenge every year, you want to stick with the Big 12 probably. But the ACC is pretty strong, although their traditional powers are a bit down this year. Most are. And E disagrees a little bit, says, and I think so as well, ACC is not as – they're still dominant, but not as dominant. The reason I say is so that less teams get left out, because Big Ten, SEC, same amount of teams, and Big 12, Pac-10 is just 2 more teams. So great point there. You're looking at it from a logistical standpoint, and I think that works. I have no problem with some teams getting left out because miraculously, usually the ones that get left out are the teams that don't need to be there. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Georgia, they were all left out. And conveniently, they're some of the worst teams in the SEC right now. So, Georgia is your biggest rivalry? Maybe. The game has been played so many times and Auburn leads by 2. True. Are you talking about football? You're talking about basketball. That's right. I thought you were talking about football there for a second. Whoever the best team besides us. All of the SEC. Anthony had his foot hanging in South Carolina and came back. Yeah, he was a trooper for coming back from that. You know, I did not get to watch that live, and thank goodness. So I have had so many. I have not broken a bone, knocking on wood, playing basketball or anything like that. But I have had some bad ankle injuries. Literally, so you know, your foot is like this. My ankle literally went like that, and I was basically that ankle bone. I was standing on that ankle bone one time. I had rolled it so bad coming down for a rebound. I could not, like, it got to a point where it literally just to breathe, someone could like breathe on my ankle and it hurt. Like I've had, and when I go to the doctor now, my usual doctor, and you know, they're doing your physical, checking all your joints and stuff like that. He goes to my ankle and he moves it every time. And he's like, I always forget how elastic your ankles are because you've rolled them so much, and it just throws them off every single time. I'm fine, but the problem is now that every time I roll my ankles, it's so elastic, it stretches further and further, and they're worse and worse each time. So I wear braces now when I play basketball for just recreational fun, but just because I can't do that again. That was tough. That was really tough. But yeah, Anthony, that was really bad. Oh, I'm glad we're providing you a bright spot there, Jack. But I seriously hope everything gets better for you, man. Obviously, here to inform and entertain, and hopefully it can make you feel better about stuff going on in your life and in the world. UAB is the biggest rival. So here's what I want, and Bruce is kind of, and maybe not by his own doing, but it has fallen off the last 2 seasons. I think we played UAB last year, maybe not. But I want UAB on the schedule every year. I think that is an outstanding thing to happen in the state every year because Alabama won't play everybody else. But I want a state of Alabama, not necessarily tournament, but showcase every year. Where you play 2 teams or you make a couple of different brackets. But think you put, and I think I would actually say South Alabama. So I would say here you put in this tournament. You put Auburn and Alabama, obviously. UAB's there. Jacksonville State, Troy, South Alabama. And I think I said UAB. So let's do that again. Auburn, Alabama, UAB, Troy, Jacksonville State, South Alabama. That's 6 teams right there. Is there anything else? Anybody else? I'm forgetting. I know there's a lot of other smaller programs, and you can add some of those in or maybe rotate some of those in, like North Alabama's, things like that. But if you put those in a tournament, I mean, we're not talking about like the most blockbuster tournament ever there, but for the state of Alabama, people would show up for that, and it'd be really, really good. Throw Alabama A&M in there as well. Throw Alabama State in there too. I'm good with that. I would love an Alabama showcase in non-conference every single year, and I would go to it. And you rotate it between the major cities. You go to Huntsville, you go to Birmingham, Montgomery, you go to Mobile, up and down, and you just rotate up and down every season. You play 2 games and I think that would just that'd be just really good. I'm getting excited about it just talking about it. North Alabama is a good option too. Bruce Pearl was meant to be our coach in his time with Milwaukee. He upset number 5 Alabama in March Madness in 04. Yes, I saw that quote talking to Mark Gottfried saying, when are you going to get your Power 5? And said, right after I beat you. And I'm paraphrasing. It would, and like I said, Josh, it is not something that the national stage would get excited about too much, maybe on some years. I just think it would be awesome, though, for the state of Alabama. and I think it'd bring a lot of revenue in for the state and eventually a lot of attention. Because Alabama, while they're good this year, they're not consistently good like Auburn has been recently. But you can pretty much guarantee those two will have a good matchup. You can pretty much guarantee that UAB and Troy will put up fights in South Alabama too now. And then I'm not sure about Jacksonville State every once in a while, but yeah, I think it would be great. I think we should play NC State every year. I really love that home and away. Living in North Carolina makes it super fun for me. I was about to ask, is there a little bit of a favoritism there because of where you're located? But understandable. I love it when Auburn comes to play Georgia Tech in anything here because I live right outside of Atlanta, and I've been to several baseball games there. I've been to a softball a game. I missed my opportunity because of things that just schedule changes to go to tennis matches there. There were swimming and diving opportunities I've been out of town for. There's plenty of things that I just love. And I'm closer to Kennesaw State, so I've been to soccer matches up there. I've been to volleyball matches. I've been to I feel like I've been to a softball game too, maybe. But yeah, I love going to the regional teams. So I love seeing them play. Like for me, if they'll play Georgia Tech, Georgia, Kennesaw State, all that stuff up here, it's good with me. In a second here, I want to ask you guys about the last group of teams and how many we win. But I kind of asked the question. I don't think anybody answered it too much. I think maybe one person did. Do you think of those 5 teams that are left, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and forgetting the last one, Ole Miss, does Auburn win all of those? What do you think? And then we'll get to the last 4, which are going to be the tough ones. What a way to end the season. So with the transfer portal open for all the players to move as they wish, do we lose or gain any extra scholarships? I don't know how that's going to work, and I do not envy the guy that's got to figure that out. I mean, really, like it's just confusing as crap as it is. I do not want to be the guy that figures that out. It is tough. I don't know. I really just don't have an answer for that. Do we lose or gain any extra scholarships? There's got to be some accommodation for all this madness that's going to go on with the COVID-19 changes and all that kind of stuff. I just don't know. I like the idea, but I would just do Bama, Auburn, South Alabama, UAB, and maybe Troy because I don't think any of those besides South Alabama, UAB could compete with the SEC teams. Yeah, I see that. I just think that the whole point of what Bruce wants to do is give attention to the other teams in the state because the better they look, the more attention they get, the better competition they get to play against, the better you're going to look as a state. And he's very big on that. What's up, Doc Salt Army? Good to see you. After the Sweet 16 a couple years ago, I've wanted to be able to brag on that level again. Do you think Deion Sanders will eventually be a Power 5 coach? I don't think so. Nothing against Deion Sanders, but he's been just all flash, no substance guy to me. And I'm not talking about his time as a player and stuff like that. And it's hard not to get on the bandwagon, especially for some of these players that maybe got overlooked by some of these other programs. And I'm aware that he's pulled in some names that he probably shouldn't have over there. Where's he at? What? Somebody help me. The university that he's at right now, Jackson State. I think that's right. So maybe, but if he is, I don't think he'll be successful. Could be wrong. I just don't see it. Do you have how many we have normally scholarships? I don't. Joe, you're asking me the tough questions, and I am unprepared for those today, sir. I do not know, but I'll have to try to go look that up. Are we going to have a good day on February 5th? I guess you're talking about signing day. It depends on what your definition of good is. If your definition of good is inside the top 25, I think you'll get that. If your definition of good is inside the top 10, I think you'll have a sad day. Top 15, it's a stretch. I said when Brian Harsin got here, I think it was plausible for them to get into the top 15, depending on who they could pull in. Haven't seen that take shape yet. And there's 6 days left? Not even 6 days. So we'll see. Don't be surprised if February 5th is not the day you were hoping it to be. Thank you for the clarification. It was Jackson State. All right, Dion could totally be a DB Power 5 coach if he wanted to. Yeah, maybe defensive back. Okay, let me paraphrase. If you were talking about a Power 5 coach as a head coach, that's what I was going with. Positional wise, yes. I think especially with his ability to recruit, the flashiness of his name, I think that is very, I forget his Showtime or something like that, or I forget his name, his nickname there. But yeah, I do think he can be a positional head coach. Head coach, this year, top 25 would be acceptable. I agree as well, and I think that should be the expectation. It's going to be tough for him to do that alone. So just prepare yourselves for February 5th to not be exactly what you want it to be. Top 20 would be a massive win for this class. I wouldn't say top 20 would be a massive win. It'd be a win. I would obviously give that more clout than just a top 25 ranking. I think massive is top 15. That shows a lot. Prime time, there. That's what it was. Showtime. I said Showtime. Prime time. With Wallace not coming here, probably top 15 would be near impossible. And that's kind of why I say that. Like, to get into, you lost out on some players that you really needed to have to get to that top 15. So I used to think the top 15 was very likely. I think it's an outside chance right now, depending on what they're doing behind the scenes. We don't know. All right, last question here. Not last question, but just in terms of the topic that I had prepared here. Switching back to basketball for a second. What do you all think about the last 4 games of the season? We talked about the next 5. It seems like everybody holds that same opinion that we should probably win those out. The last 5, let me see if I get them all right. Florida, Alabama is the last one. You've got, oh gosh, Kyle, I'm blanking on all of them. Tennessee, and then there's one more that I think it's one of the ones that somebody help me out. But the last 4 are all going to be tough. And I think if Auburn gets out of there with 2 wins, and I think you can do it against Florida potentially. I think you can do it against, I think Tennessee's at home. Yeah, it's the last home game. So that one might be the big shebang late in the season. But beating Alabama when they're ready to celebrate that Iron Bowl win with the way they're doing at home is going to be really, really tough. Still on that free Dylan Brooks bandwagon. 2-2 in the last year. I think 2-2 is very acceptable for that. Here's the way I see it shaping out. If Auburn wins the next 9 games, wins out in the first 5, which is highly possible, and goes 2-2, that's a pretty good end to the year, and something you should be very excited about as a program, even when that means when March 2nd, I think it is, and the clock strikes zeros and the season's over officially for Auburn basketball. There's still a lot to be excited about. Do we make the NIT? Yeah, keep dreaming. If we split 2 of them, then that would be good. If we somehow upset Bama, it'd be over the moon. So yeah, if you really want to make this season worth it, you'll beat Alabama at the end of the season and wreck their hopes and dreams for still being respected. So here's the beauty of this season. Without any postseason left, there's a perfect opportunity to just end with a bang, and they can do it. I believe they can. Kevlar, I think he knows that. I think he was. Oh, maybe he didn't know that. I thought he was being funny. War Productions. It's funny you said that. Just reminding everyone, Virginia double dribbled. So, I'm a Christian and I go to church on obviously on Sundays. And so we were leaving the worship service this morning, and this gentleman was walking in front of us outside, and it was raining. And he opens up his umbrella, and it's this big bold Virginia in my face. And Jessica, my wife, looks at me and said, "Don't do it. Don't do it." And so he starts walking away, and finally I'm like, You double dribbled. You didn't deserve to win. I couldn't help it. Like, I wasn't yelling it, but I was saying it loud enough to where you might just be able to hit. You double dribbled. So it's funny that you said that. Not even the NIT. Honestly, I'm glad Bama could use that as a way of trash talk. It could. So, look, I'm not above going to the NIT if that's what it takes, but that's not happening this year. So I don't look down on the NIT. I know some people do. I'm just glad. I would be happy to have any there was a time where we dreamed of the NIT. So when Auburn got there in that one great season under Lebo, when we thought things were heading upward, I was so excited to be there. So that's it. So I think we've covered the most of what I wanted to talk about. We're going to go ahead and say goodbye to the Twitter folks. Thank y'all for being here. We'll have more here on YouTube for you guys. All right, we said bye to the social media folks. Last minute comments, questions about anything, get it in right now. Let me go through our usual spiel here. If you haven't found ways to help support our content that we do here on the YouTube channel or the podcast network, the ways you can do that are listening to the podcast. I will put the link for you if you want to go find it on Apple, but you can find it anywhere. And if you can't find it, please let me know. We will help you do so on your podcast app of choice. Also, to now is a very great time to join the E2C Network Booster Club, and you can do that for as low as $1 a month, and you still get some great perks with that. That link is there for you as well. Thank you to so much of y'all who have already done that. You're helping support the content that we do here, not just helping us do it, but helping produce some of the things that we want to do in terms of better camera equipment, better lighting, all that stuff. I'll tell you this much, and let me go through this, and I'll tell you a little bit of tidbit of information. PayPal donations, and we had someone do that recently. I haven't seen them in here, but I think I've thanked them. Cord, Sports with Cord, thank you so much for sending that our way. That was very helpful. TeePublic store as well, where you can get our gear, but also some other Auburn gear as well. And one of the perks too for the E2C Network Booster Club, at the second level, you get a free T-shirt from us. So all that, I'll create another graphic where you can see some of the perks that you might want to go check out, but it's worth there. And then, we try to communicate with our people on a more regular basis there. So some of y'all have been taking advantage of that. That's the stuff that I have for you guys on this end. So what I was going to talk to you about, a lot of y'all have asked for us to do something, keep changing things, what we do here. I have a way potentially where I can take call-ins. Anybody interested in that? Here's what I will do. It's not perfect, and I used to do it a different way. But if you guys would be interested in that, if you can get us, I'm trying to decide if that's too much or not. How about that? I was going to say 1,000 because I know that we're still a bit of ways from that. If we get to 900 subscribers, I will start using that way and start seeing if the functionality works on this way for you all to call in and be part of the show. So that being said, so you can do that by liking this video, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and also sharing it with your friends. So just a little bit of tidbit information there. All right, petition to bring the annual Auburn-Tulane rivalry back. Sign here. I mean, I can live without it. I'm good. No, don't pick UVA, guys. You're not smart enough. Do you like the design of the football performance center renderings? Wanted just a bit more pop. Really? I thought there was plenty of pop in that. I mean, they got a barber shop, for crying out loud, and they basically have a hangout area that looks like the Star Wars cantina. So, Kevlar, tell me, what more would you have wanted? I thought there was a lot in there, a little bit excessive to me. Here's the point, that we had to have something. We had to upgrade this to compete with Alabama, to compete with Georgia, to compete with LSU, and then other programs as well. They're starting to build this. I think Tennessee's kind of done the same thing. So this was very much needed, and yeah. Kevlar says a bigger weight room. If they're downgrading, then yes, but I don't think they are. And I don't know if you've been in that weight room. That weight room is massive. I've been to it. It was massive when I went, in terms of I went to camps and stuff like that as a high schooler. That place is huge, and I know it's only gotten bigger. So I think there are tours you can take in normal circumstances where there's not a pandemic and stuff like that. So you should. I think you can do that on fan day. I know you get to go in some of the other field houses and stuff like that, and obviously the covered area where they practice, which is all going to be changing with this, right? But yeah, it's been very much needed. I'm happy with it. I'm happy it's happening because it was held from Coach Malzahn forever and really hindered him in his recruiting. So the fact that Coach Harsin is getting it is a big win for him in my book. All right, so I think we're good for the day, guys. Thank y'all so much for being here. I do have plans to go tomorrow, barring these unforeseen circumstances. There's not a lot in terms of big news happening at this moment. Maybe we'll talk some recruiting or something like that. But yeah, hope we'll see you here tomorrow. Thank y'all all for being here so much. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.